What if Deku's path to heroism led to unexpected love? Join him on this surprising journey. #Harem. The next day arrived. The great city of Las Vegas was supposed to dawn with a great sunny day, with workers doing their work cleaning the streets, the owners of bars and hotels making their preparations for a new productive day. But it was not like that. The city woke up in total chaos. Firefighters were putting out the last fires in various parts of the city. The police were finally maintaining the established order, putting the last offenders in the large trucks that would take the detainees away. Not only that, but many streets and avenues were blocked by several overturned cars. Meanwhile, at Caesar's Palace, the hotel where the UA students were staying also woke up to a somewhat similar disaster. "What the hell happened?" said Todoroki Shoto, who had woken up on the couch in a room that wasn't his. He was wearing the same clothes he had on when he went to the party. The difference was that he had dried vomit near his chest, a disgusting smell of marijuana on his hands. That was the impression he gave himself when he woke up. Why am I in Kirishima's room? He had realized that he had stayed in his partner's room, due to various clues. Such as the weights he had brought with him, that cheap perfume he boasted about on his nightstand and of course, his identification lying on the floor. "Todoroki, what are you doing here?" The redhead had come straight out of his bath. He didn't look well either, he even had a tattoo of a male member on his forehead. "If I were you, I would wear a cap to avoid embarrassment," Shoto said, trying not to look and laugh at his partner's particular tattoo. "That?" Kirishima returned to his bathroom to take a better look at himself in the mirror. And then he let out a not very manly scream. You could hear him trying to wash that tattoo over and over again. And the others? The room was littered with empty beer bottles, cigarette boxes, and even a pipe lying around. It was getting difficult for him to walk through all the stuff. "This is a disaster, I thought the hotel had banned celebrations here. Arg." His head was starting to hurt. His thirst was also increasing. This is what a hangover feels like, huh? As he walked out into the hallway of rooms, he noticed that it was almost the same mess, except that he even found a shotgun lying around, along with a police helmet on the floor. What the hell happened? Same here, Shoto. Turning to the left of the hallway, he saw this completely shaved Bakugo with a mustache painted with permanent marker. "Make fun of it and I'll give you an explosive slap like I did to Denki." The now bald explosive threatened. "Don't worry, you're not worse than Kirishima now. I think you need to comfort him." "No need guys, I did something stupid. Let's just leave it like that," Kirishima said as he approached the duo. The two boys made room for the boy to walk out into the hallway. "What a mess. What the hell happened here?" "We asked each other everything, Kirishima. You don't have to repeat it," this Bakugo said grumpily. "Now what?" Suddenly, someone was making a scene. "Guys. Professor Aizawa sent us a message, he says we have to leave now. The government and hero squads are entering the hotels." "Isn't that Denki? It sounds like him," Shoto commented. "It's him. I slapped him hard and left him in the room. It didn't take long for him to wake up." The blonde boy named Denki walked towards the boys at full speed, repeating those same words over and over again for the others to hear, not noticing that he had stepped on Toru's foot. "Look at you, idiot. You can't even see yourself. Don't blame me. You better go to the hall." Ignoring an angry Toru, Denki finally arrived with the boys. He didn't seem as calm as usual. "Guys. The city is in a state of emergency. Last night was crazy, I think we were also involved in this. Professor Aizawa says that we should leave the city. Even ignore your big suitcases, take the essentials." Kirishima held the blonde's shoulders and said. "Calm down Denki. What are you saying?" Kirishima. "Yesterday there were riots at the end of summer party, even the fireworks were cancelled. Even the army had to intervene to stop the crowd. They are saying on Facebook chats that they are breaking into hotels to arrest people. I don't want to stay in the United States as a prisoner. Let's go." Everyone was in shock. What had they done last night? It scared them. Panicking, all 5 boys, including Toru, went to their classmates' rooms to wake them up. They had to flee the country as quickly as possible. Fortunately, they had found everyone except one classmate of theirs, Izuku Midoriya. "Where is?" Uraka said in a panic, as she ran with the few things she could pack with her. "He must be with Aizawa. He's smart," Mina said, trying to calm her down and herself at the same time. "That's it. It can't be too far away," Momo said, complimenting the conversation. But they were wrong. Somewhere in the Mojave Desert, Nevada. 10:30 a.m. Meanwhile, our favorite green-haired boy was no better off than his idiotic classmates. Just look at the state the boy woke up in. First of all, it should be mentioned that Izuku was in a house near a highway. Apparently, it belonged to a village not far from the state highway. A very abandoned one. That house had nothing but a bed, a radio, a broken window, and the floor was still dirt. You could say it was more of a shed than a house. My head. Our careless boy had already felt his first hangover. 1,000 times worse than the average drunk might feel. In addition to the stabbing pain, his eardrums couldn't stop ringing, and his thirst was intense. It was impossible to concentrate on sleeping again afterwards. So it was better to get up. No way, what really happened to me? His condition was such that he could no longer avoid speaking in Spanish and not in Japanese. Trying to calm down a bit, he was already starting to notice where he was. Apparently it was not dawn at the hotel. Nor could it be considered a hostel. As he got out of bed, he noticed that the place where he had slept had various fluids. Inside he hoped it was just pure sweat. But he would be lying to himself. Are these beer bottles? There were several bottles of Indio, Corona, and even Bud Light on the floor. That increased her doubts. Had he drunk all of that alone? Moreover, why am I in different clothes? Or why do I feel so exposed? He could only hope that whatever had happened wasn't too bad or something he would regret. What have I done? Will never let me live this down. I just wanted to cry, but I was too dehydrated for that. One moment. Looking down, he saw something on the floor that made him uneasy. What the hell happened last night? He could only say that out loud while holding a piece of clothing that wasn't his. Please, someone tell me I didn't do anything stupid. Someone tell me. He could only kneel dramatically while still holding a piece of unfamiliar clothing in his hands. Even Professor Midnight's lectures about responsibility didn't seem to help. Whatever happened last night, it was a mess. He said all this in surrender. As if fate was playing with him, next to where he found those panties there was a note. Apparently made with paper from a notepad. I think it might be a note. I dropped my panties on the floor to grab the note. And I read it. I noticed it was in English. Hello, you. Last night was something else. You really know how to have a good time. Hope this note reminds you of our fun. Well, whatever. Even after everything, you were a total gentleman. Thanks for the memories. Izuku, cursing what happened, crumpled the letter and balled it up. He didn't want to know anything about the previous night. If there was even a chance that Uraka wouldn't know about his infidelity, he would take it. Despite everything, she had to calm down, she had to get out of here first. So she dressed in the same clothes she wore to the party. Guys, where are you? He finally said worriedly. The boy was really in a difficult situation. Meanwhile, the morons called Izuku's friends had their own problems now. First, many of them abandoned many valuable things when fleeing Las Vegas, then they had to give an exit pass to the authorities who were blocking the road in search of some fugitives from yesterday's riots. Worst of all, their bus driver that they were going to take to the airport was arrested in the riots and there was no one to take them. So, abandoning their morals that they were raised with, they had to steal the bus that the man left parked a few blocks away from the hotel. Guys, if anyone asks about the driver, just say that I'm a part-time worker. We don't want to give another bribe to the authorities. Aizawa ended up being the substitute driver. One who didn't want to even see his students. As a result, morale was at rock bottom, and their hangovers did nothing to improve their mood. Professor, what will happen to Midoriya? What will we do? Mina, who was sitting next to the driver, asked with great concern, just like her companions. First of all, you fucking bastards. He said those words with an extremely aggressive tone of voice. We'll go to Japan and hopefully live your shitty lives without having appeared in the media or Facebook for the stupidity you committed. For my part, I will not go with you because I'm going to look for Midoriya. You do not know how serious this is, you do not know how serious your actions have affected not only yourselves, but your partner. You saw. We know, Professor, we screwed up big time. Bakugo said, feeling a great sense of remorse for himself. He was the one who held Midoriya back because of his ring. Kirishima, who was beside him, felt worse, why he was the one who led his friend wrong. Rather, everyone in the group felt terrible about what happened to Izuku. Uraka, on the other hand, apart from the fact that she was the only one without remorse about it, only knew part of the truth. That her classmates had drugged her teacher, not her boyfriend. Even so, she couldn't help but feel a little hatred towards her classmates because even so, it is still her fault that the love of her life is lost. Izuku, wherever you are, I hope you are well. My love. She told herself, trying to calm down. Anxiety was eating away at her, her friends had ruined her special night, and the worst thing was that she didn't remember anything that happened last night after they went out to look for him. Hey Uraka? Jiru, who was sitting next to her, wanted to cheer her up a little. Since she also felt a little remorse due to her actions, unlike the others. They were friends, shouldn't they support each other? Of course, she would never tell her about what they did to Izuku directly, she knew what it would imply. As it was, things were intense between the girls before. I apologize in advance for doing that stupid thing and affecting you and Izuku. We didn't know that Izuku would get lost. Uraka, for her part, was undecided. Little by little, the friendship she had with the other girls was beginning to deteriorate, especially with these recent events. Should she forgive Jiru? What should she do? A. I don't trust you or anyone else. Why should I accept your apology? B. Why was it that only you approached me to apologize? Among all of them, why you? C. I will accept your apologies, but on one condition. While they were engrossed in their conversation and you as the audience choose, we must now concentrate on our green-haired boy. The same Mojave State Highway. 12:45 a.m. I have to leave this in the past, Izuku said as he walked on the side of the road, it's my only option. The aforementioned green-haired boy wanted to leave everything behind. He knew he couldn't change the past, but if he could hide it, he would. He had already said it before, he didn't want his girlfriend Uraka to find out about his fatal sin, which he committed with a girl he would never see again, and if the note explained where she would meet him, that didn't interest him at all. I hope I hid it well, and that no one found it. He was now clenching his fist tightly. What he did was tear the note into several pieces, then he grabbed the panties and put them in a backpack, which by coincidence he also found coming out of the shed. It was lying right next to the door. I wonder who KR is. In the backpack there was a piece of paper tied to a small string, on which it said, "This backpack belongs to KR, whoever stole it will suffer." That last thing did not reassure him. Who assures him that he did not steal that backpack? There was nothing inside except a wooden box with a combination lock, and when you moved it sounded like something metallic was in it. There was something written on it, which said, "My greatest treasure I am." I wasn't interested in knowing its contents either. Finally, he searched the pockets of his clothes to see if there was any clue as to what he had done, and boy did he find it. Like some receipts from the places he had been, like the receipt for his drink at the Copacabana bar and a keychain with the inscription Luna Nova. Like all the above, he put it in his backpack. To conclude his idiotic plan of concealment, he grabbed a shovel in an abandoned property, then near the house, using his one for all he dug a rather large hole in less than 2 minutes and then left the backpack there. Finally he finished burying it. Now, with no phone, he concluded that he must have lost it, or it was stolen, no water, and no idea which way to go on the highway. He walked in the hope of meeting someone who would help him get to Las Vegas. From there he could call the embassy. It would be a long journey. He spent exactly an hour like this, feeling like he was dying. Walking through the desert was already a hell that made him very thirsty, and with his hangover it was even worse. His headache kept getting worse. He felt that if he took another step, he could die, ignored by the Americans. Virgin of Guadalupe, if you are there, please help me. Izuku had already given up on the desert, lying on the side of the road. Now he was babbling nonsense in Spanish. I swear I'll be good, I'll take responsibility for the stupid thing I did, I'll donate to the poor, if I have children I'll be a better father than my father, I'll quit my addiction to gummies with mezcal, I'll hit Kachan, I'll quit hentai because Uraka won't sleep with me, I'll value Mexico more, what's more, I'll no longer pretend to be someone else for others. A few minutes passed since he was left without the desire to speak. He had lost all hope that he would be saved. I'll die for a fucking Vegas trip that I myself was really looking forward to taking. What a way to die, huh? He said, thinking his last thoughts. Suddenly, he felt a female voice say to him in a low voice, "Now my child, live the life you decided to live." Then, surprised by the sudden voice, he turned his head to the left side and saw an almost spiritual light approaching quickly towards him. Suddenly, he felt a female voice say to him in a low voice, "Now my child, live the life that you decided to live." Then, surprised by the sudden voice, he turned his head to the left and saw an almost spiritual light approaching quickly towards him. Feeling almost as if he had been heard by the little Virgin of Guadalupe herself, he answered her. "I will do it, thank you for granting me this miracle." Unfortunately, it was not the Virgencita de Guadalupe but a 2007 Nissan pickup Estaquitas, whose light was reflected by the sun's rays, due to the white color of the truck. full of Mexican workers and immigrants who saw the green-haired boy lying on the road. "Boss, this blonde guy with broccoli hair needs help," said a young worker, who was standing in the loading area where they were being transported. "We're going to help him," I answer next to him, a dark, robust man, and wearing a straw-colored hat, typical of Monterrey. And so, they came to the aid of the green-haired man, saving him from certain death. Hours later. Nevada Intentional Airport, 3:30 p.m. The UA boys had finally arrived at the airport. They were waiting to go to the waiting rooms after having checked in at the exact time. To top it off, Aizawa was having a hard time changing the date of his flight before looking for Izuku. Their mood was still the same, feeling like complete idiots, if you will. Except for Uraka, who had made a decision about Jiru's apology, only to be mentioned in the next chapter. Meanwhile, Lita and Bakugo were smoking outside the terminal. The place where cars drop off those who are going to travel. "Any clues about Midoriya on the internet?" Bakugo said, while taking a drag on his cigarette. "Nothing, just what happened yesterday. There was a masked man who danced well with several girls in the club and it went viral, just videos of the riots, and I couldn't find Deku among them." Lita said, a little irritated, keeping his cigarette in his mouth and looking at his phone. "It would be a miracle if he contacted us now. I doubt he took his phone." Bakugo said that without thinking, being irritated in the same way as Lita. "I'm wondering the same." While the duo was talking, Denki wanted to stretch his legs and go for a walk outside the terminal, near the cars. He stayed like that for a few minutes, until the blonde could see a familiar figure approaching in a van of a model he didn't know, with several people. "It can't be. I have to call them." The blonde quickly took out his phone and started sending messages to the entire group chat. Midoriya Izuku was in the airport terminal. Without waiting a minute, the others left their seats and quickly headed to the place where the blonde had told them. It was true what he had said, his friend was at the terminal. He had finally appeared. Izuku, for his part, was happy to have arrived at the airport on time before his flight. All thanks to Don Jose and his workers. "Thank you, Don, for bringing me here, even to the terminal I told you about. I don't know how to repay you," Izuku said, speaking Spanish with the same man. "There is nothing to be thankful for, my son. That's what we're here for. We help whoever we can, and besides, there's the work we're going to do," said the jovial man. "Also, it was fun meeting a Japanese countryman. I'm even glad to know that you're Mrs. Azami's grandson." A worker also joined the conversation. "When I lived in Mexico City, Mrs. Azami helped those of us who didn't have enough to eat at her restaurant, and many of us here met her in person. I will never be able to thank her enough. Did you know that she was the one who made the tamales before we left for the gabacho?" Another extremely happy worker said. "Obakan has always been like that, she likes to help others." Izuku said this, remembering good times with his grandmother. "Plebe, you said you lived in Mexico, didn't you live with Mrs. Azami?" Now Don Jose resumed the conversation. "No, my mother wanted to avoid problems with my grandmother and got an apartment in the Alvaro Obregón neighborhood. From there we went to the restaurant." "How long did you live there?" "From the age of 6 to 9, then I had to move back to Japan." "Lady Azami must miss you." "Don't worry, I visit every summer, but now I couldn't come here. And it didn't go well at all, we even had to give you a hangover medicine and a lot of water," said another different worker. "NMS, I felt like I was dying, there were almost vultures over my head." Everyone laughed at Izuku's comment. Meanwhile, his classmates were surprised that their classmate fluently spoke a language from a country they knew little or nothing about. It was almost obvious that it was not difficult for him to communicate and adapt to their way of speaking. "Why does Izuku speak fluent Spanish? He looks Mexican like that," Lita said, surprised. "Why did Izuku wear that?" Mina commented, surprised. His companion was dressed differently than they remembered. He had pants with some holes, a red cap to protect himself from the heat, and finally he wore a yellow sweater with the words America and several brands that few of them knew, except Toyota. Somewhat illustrative photo. Finally Izuku had gotten off that van full of people and was saying goodbye. "By the way, thanks for the America shirt. My clothes were a mess." Izuku had his clothes in a Walmart bag. "Guy, are you loyal to America by any chance?" Don Jose commented with curiosity. "Sir, I am loyal to my Necaxa. Even if they lose dishonorably against America," Izuku said patriotically. "Your team is full of logs, the American Eagles will win next week," he said with a mocking smile. "Puff, you wish. Well, we have to go now. You have my number in case you want to contact me." I have a daughter who might be interested. That last thing, Don Jose winked at him. I'll think about it, sir, ha ha ha. He was obviously joking, but he was surprised that even that kind of jokes no longer made him uncomfortable. Finally, all the other workers who were in the area also said goodbye to Izuku. Then, the van took its predestined course. It didn't take him long to notice that his classmates were standing near where he was parked the entire time. And they looked at him strangely. Only Tokoyami could have the courage to tell him. You look weird, Midoriya. I don't have time for this, he said that in a bad mood when he saw Kirishima or Bakugo. Did someone do me the favor of at least saving my passport? Uraka, without thinking twice, took her passport out of her handbag and slowly approached the green-haired boy. Here. You're the best, said the green-haired boy, looking at her differently. His touch with her was different, she could feel it, it seemed that he was the only one looking at her with pity. That seemed strange to her. Thank you. Hey Izuku, I'm sorry about the inn. Bakugo, who slowly approached him to try to apologize, but couldn't finish. Because a fist loaded with 2% of 1 for all hit him directly in the nose, and ended up throwing him into some nearby trash cans. I have to check in before we go to the boarding gates. Help that idiot up. I want to get out of this dump as soon as possible. His combination of Spanish and Japanese made them uneasy. Was that the Izuku Midoriya they knew? What happened to the boy who was shy at times? No one moved, they just stood there watching as this Izuku entered the terminal. Only to be stopped by Uraka, who with surprising speed managed to grab his hand. Honey, tell me, what happened to you? You're worrying me. Why are you speaking Spanish all of a sudden? Where did you go? Are you hiding something from me? You seem different. Her expression was that of a girlfriend worried about her boyfriend. Meanwhile, he had a hard time looking at her face, because the feeling that he had cheated on her with another girl would torture him. What will Izuku do? What will he say to her? I had a shitty day, love. I got drunk and woke up in the Nevada desert. I feel tired, disgusted by the hangover, and I couldn't spend time with you at the party because of 2 idiots and I don't want to talk about it. B. He leaves without saying anything, leaving her even more worried. I'll just say that you don't know me completely, there are things about me that I haven't told you, and I don't mean to be rude, but it was something I wanted to keep to myself, he said seriously and still guilty. As for the other thing, I just had a shitty day because I got drunk and I ended up in the desert. 4 months later. The wall clock was ticking constantly, the sun's rays illuminating a kind of office. There was a reclining armchair accompanied by a wooden chair, a chest of drawers located at the back, and the indispensable desk. Meanwhile, on its walls hung 2 graduate degrees and a university degree from the University of Tokyo. Yep, that's what you guys think. Our protagonist, as incredible as it may seem, was there to receive therapy from a specialist. Well, Mr. Izuku, would you like to start from the beginning? If you want, you can summarize a few things. Now the green-haired man was lying on that reclining leather chair, ready to continue with his treatment. The woman who was serving him was in front of him, sitting in the chair mentioned above. Why from the beginning? I insist, that will help with our treatment. It is like looking at the current situation and comparing it to what we had in our first session. Preferably, accompany your narrative with how you feel. Well, I'll start now. He said a little nervously. Then, he began to narrate. It's been 4 months since that trip to Las Vegas, and since that trip I don't feel like I'm the same as before, the Izuku Midoriya of UA. Now I feel like a different person, one I never imagined I would be. Since I arrived in Japan I feel very desperate that I can't be the self I had become accustomed to, but I feel like I have crossed a point of no return. The worst of all is how it affects those around me, not just me. For example, the case that has affected my change the most is my girlfriend. I told her a half-truth, and my guilt has changed the way I act with her. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but let's say that before we used to kiss, we went to places to go out as a couple, I could even talk to her on Facebook for hours. Now, I feel like I hate myself every time I'm with her and I make pathetic excuses not to go out, or I just don't talk to her on text anymore. What else can I say? Oh yeah. What I am going to say is the thing that has made me feel the most self-conscious apart from the other things, and that is that there are times when I do not regret what happened. I know, does it sound contradictory? Well, it is. I suffer for having done it, but at the same time I feel that it was something that was necessary. Done. I said it. The reason this is happening to me is because of the same changes I felt. The same ones that made me hate myself. The epiphany of that day in the desert made me see some things in my life, things I never thought to reflect on. So to speak, it made me see what was bothering me before the trip. That uncomfortable feeling I had, and it was. Did I really feel like the real Izuku Midoriya? Did he just think I was a fake personality? So I concluded that the burden of being someone else was wearing me down. Being myself, nothing more than that. I realized that I had to pretend to be someone else. Then there's the other thing that weighs on me. And that is, should I really be upset that my peers see a side of me that they've never seen? Well, the thing about my girlfriend should be a separate issue, right? I can't think of anything else. I think I summed it up well, right? For a few seconds the office was completely silent. But it didn't last long as the woman answered him. In your session last week, you said that you started to see that others have noticed how much you have changed. Can you tell me in more detail what things have changed about you? Then, Izuku answered him. Mainly my quips with the Spanish language. I'm often told that it's weird that I suddenly blurt out an idiom, like no manches. Although, now that I think about it, he put his hand on his chin, they've also expressed their displeasure with me suddenly bringing Mexican food during mealtime. Lastly, they say I'm aggressive, but why? I only defend myself from Bakugo, can't I? He said that last thing annoyed. So she wrote in her notebook what the green-haired boy had told her. Izuku, I look at him directly, seeing what you just said and what you told me when we started, I can tell that you're realizing what you're really feeling, with less denial on your part. I mean, you're realizing reality and how you feel about it. It's good progress, it means you don't feel so bad about changing anymore. So why does it still bother me that my colleagues don't like this side of me? Why? You can answer it yourself, Izuku. It didn't take Izuku long to realize that indeed, he knew the answer. Because I'm afraid of losing them. Since they're the only ones who have treated me well. This time, he could feel a tear running down his left cheek. Izuku, with what you just told me, I want you to understand one thing. Don't confuse one with the other. Your feelings of guilt about infidelity shouldn't be mixed with fear and insecurity with your friends. So I recommend that you separate them and know that you can deal with each one. Izuku really liked that answer of his. But how? To begin with, didn't we say in September that you should tell your girlfriend the truth? I'm still scared. That's the problem, your fear is what will make this mess worse. The longer the lie continues, the more serious the consequences. In my experience as a psychologist, relationships based on lies are very fragile and tend to end due to a lack of honesty between the parties. Now Izuku was crying. I love her so much, seeing her suffer for. Suddenly, she touched his shoulder and looked directly at him, with a somewhat motherly expression. Young people are very emotional, you should know that. Yes, she may be hurt, and maybe she suffers because of it, but you should know that you suffer because of it too. Shouldn't you take that burden off yourself too? Besides, they may break up, but they will be better and their emotions will be better. Remember, that's why it's called a couple, it's a relationship between both of you. His warmth made her pull herself together and wipe away the tears she brought with her. I think I'll listen to you now, I have to tell you the truth. There's no point in hiding it. He said determinedly. Then she removed her hand from his shoulder and composed herself. He believes she inspires confidence. As for the other thing, I could recommend that you don't have to leave or be affected by what your friends think. From person to person, I could tell you that you better choose your friends better, there are good guys who should accept this Izuku, right? She winked at him about the last part. You are right. Now, he was smiling a little. So, why don't we talk about your father? The hour and 20 minutes of the session passed like this, until it was finally concluded. Then, Izuku left. Doctor, can I ask you a question? Well, I know it's a little late considering I've been with you since mid-August, but... She smiled warmly at him. Sure, no problem. Why or how did you practice psychology considering that you are the Mount Lady heroine? The one who was at the top a long time ago. Suddenly she let out a little giggle. Kid, I guess we're not so different after all. Do you want to know? Well, I'll tell you. Now Izuku was paying even more attention. I graduated from high school at 11, and finished my bachelor's degree at 16. I've already completed 2 postgraduate degrees and have given lectures. Obviously, my time is limited by my activities as a heroine. Now Izuku looked like a cartoon character because his mouth was open in surprise. But, how? Now you take Iyama's side. Izuku, being a woman is not as easy as you think, especially if you are beautiful, even if they say otherwise. I was born with a high IQ and I was able to study what I wanted, psychology, but with difficulties, since the pretty blonde cannot be intelligent, according to them. Even when I practiced at 18, I had to pretend to be someone I was not, just like you, because they didn't see a smart girl, but a beautiful blonde that everyone wants to fuck. Uncomfortable, right? Or a naive hero who is only guided by his ideals. I know. I understood her too. As for being a heroine, well, there was a time when I got tired, and I said, if that beauty bothers me, why don't I benefit from fame and money for it? And if I get money, I could open my own practice. I had a good quirk, so I went to a not very prestigious hero school, paid for it with my salary and graduated. There you see me, surrendered to the opinion of others, trying to get something good out of it. She said a little dejectedly. Then she looked directly at Izuku. That's why I admire your bravery, Izuku, because even though you're the symbol of peace, a burden I would never imagine having. You have the audacity to reflect on your friends, and the way they treat you because of your personality. That is to say, little by little you will lose the fear of being judged. For that very reason, I'm glad to have met you, Izuku. I even dare to say that you inspire me and I admire you. She gave him a beautiful smile, which made him blush and nervous. Thank you very much. I came to pick up. Now the subdued Shy stood up and was walking to the door of the office. Hey Izuku. Yeah? You don't want to go out for coffee with me after your next session, of course in the sense of friends. It's just that I feel like I can be honest with you and I like that. Hee, what do you say? Yeah, they're just friends, why not? Although he found it strange that she was blushing a little, but maybe it's his imagination, right? Sure, I'll treat you. Now he smiled widely, which made her turn around. He didn't know why, it seemed strange to him. Okay, see you later Izuku, tell me how it went with Uraka. I hope to see you soon. Likewise. Then he left the office, but not before paying his respective $200. Although it sounds expensive, for him it is not, and for the psychologist, who inspires a lot of confidence, he felt that the money was well spent. Now tomorrow he will confess the truth to Ochako, and from there the future of their relationship will be determined. Meanwhile. Calm down you, don't do anything stupid, he still has a girlfriend, if you do something, he'll walk away. Now the psychologist was blushing and frustrated at the same time at her own desk. Her heart was captured by her cute green-haired patient. The next day. A new school day had begun for Izuku, already in his last semester to graduate from UA. It was nothing out of the ordinary, they were just common classes to prepare for the evaluation period. Getting through the monotonous hours was not a problem, but gathering the courage to confess his sin to his girlfriend, well, that was another story. He could have told her over text, he could have said it in English V class, in Rescue 3 class, Heroic Law 2, during recess, and in the second to last Arrest I class. But he didn't. Now, this was his last chance in Strategy 4 class, with Professor Aizawa. Okay. Get your head around it Izuku, whatever has to happen, will happen. You don't have to be afraid, what else bad can happen? Shit. I'm not ready. He was saying this to himself as he sat depressed at his small desk. He was also looking at his girlfriend Uraka, who was chatting with her classmate Jiru not far from him. Why did I cheat on that beautiful girl for someone I forgot? Why? He was lamenting pathetically in a low voice. No. Suddenly he gave himself a mental slap, this was not the time to be pathetic. He had to do the right thing, his psychologist had already told him so. Hiding it would only make the problem bigger. He had to have the balls to go there and tell her. Okay, here I go. What's up Midoriya? Without warning, his partner Lita spoke to him from behind. Something that made him nervous. He didn't want to be rude to his partner, but that was none of his business in this matter. Unfortunately, he had no choice but to turn around and speak to him directly. I'm just going to invite Uraka to the movies, he lied without any problem. Well, you know, couple things now, he was fake laughing to pretend. Well then. See you. The Four Eyes retired to do his own business. Things that we don't even care to mention. Meanwhile, our protagonist realized that there was something strange about his partner, he didn't know how to explain it. To begin with, how high was his voice tone for him to hear? It was strange in the way they spoke. I'll think about this later. He had better business to attend to. Okay. Now, Izuku had a clear path to her. Every step he took was a torment, he felt his heartbeat increase, his hands sweat, and to top it all off, he was sweating cold. They, on the other hand, were engrossed in their own conversation. What do you think about remnant people coming to Japan? Several people have been complaining that they come here for work. Jiru was sitting at her small desk in front of Uraka. while Uraka frowned at her friend's question. Ever since we met that blonde in Vegas, I didn't get a good impression. I mean, I didn't like the way she treated us. Who cared about her stupid bike? Bumblebee or whatever it's called. Yes, but I don't think so. Hey. Girls. Suddenly their conversation was interrupted by a nervous Izuku. What's wrong, Izuku? His girlfriend answered kindly, do you want to go on a date? Jiru, for her part, knew that she would make the couple uncomfortable with her presence. So she slowly left the place, going to chat for a short while with her ex-boyfriend Denki. No. Fear almost paralyzed him. Look, love, I want you to. Yeah? Now she raised an eyebrow in doubt. I need to talk too. Suddenly, teacher Aizawa abruptly opened the classroom. Izuku Midoriya. His scream shook everyone in the room. They had never seen him scream like that since Las Vegas. What's wrong, sensei? Now the aforementioned boy approached the professor with great fear, leaving his confused girlfriend behind. Director Nezu urgently requests you in his office. You cannot refuse. It concerns you. Suddenly, Aizawa roughly grabbed the clothes from his arm and ended up dragging him out of the room. A few meters later, his hands were tied with his bandages and he was also dragged as if he were a prisoner of war. Because? Now he was confused. Why was Aizawa acting like this? Believe me, Midoriya, whatever hormonal problem you have now is nothing compared to the stupid thing you did. In fact, if you were part of the trash that your companions became on that trip, you would be more innocent than you are now. Now what he felt when he tried to confess to Uraka, he is feeling it 1000%. Sensei, please tell me, what did I do? In just the 12 hours that you disappeared, you caught the attention of 3 nations and Remnant itself. Now the consequences are coming to you. I think it's better that they explain it to you themselves. What the hell is going on, them? He thought in fear. How could one night of getting drunk have caused this? It didn't make sense in the slightest. It didn't take long for them to reach the principal's office. But there was something he hadn't expected. He only had to walk close to the large wooden door leading to his office to notice. Naicho? What the hell is she doing here? The place was packed with men in suits and well armed. He even saw some with tactical armor according to their quirk. All lined up horizontally on each side of the wall. Yeah, if you're wondering why I was late to class, it was because of them. The Naikaku Joho Chozushitsu, Cabinet Intelligence and Research Bureau. Now do you see how serious this is? If the Naicho was involved, it only meant one thing. The one Izuku detests would surely be there. No, I'd rather be expelled than see him again. I already have enough with seeing him every 15 days. Idiot. You can't refuse. I hate politics too, just like Toshinori hated it. Now Aizawa was immobilizing the green-haired boy. He had to watch him without blinking, because if he was careless, he would escape. I don't want to sleep. It's so boring. The guards, despite their training, couldn't help but laugh a little at that scene. It looked like a mother and her son struggling to get the child into the school. This is not a meeting for political campaigns. This is more important, don't be irresponsible. What the hell did I do? I'm only 18 years old, what did I do to get the attention of other countries? I don't think my business involves war. For what you did, we should be careful with Remnant. Stop being such a child. Without warning, Izuku bit Aizawa's hand and he screamed. Unfortunately, Izuku struggled in vain, because for 10 minutes, even if he bit, he wouldn't release him. Also that he would finally give up. Can you give up? My hand already has a lot of your drool on it. Izuku finally let go. Shit. Same here, Izuku, do you know what the 5% reduction in your salary is? Because of what you caused. Aizawa looked visibly frustrated. You earn less than $300 a week, you earn more for your figures. That barely helps me with the rent on my apartment, who pays for my electricity? Crybaby. But yes, that's what you're good at, for pachinko. Izuku received a smack from his teacher for that comment. I'm not the problem here. A slight smile of satisfaction could be seen on his face, while Izuku grumbled, once again tied up by his teacher's bandages. They finally approached the men guarding the door. They didn't seem friendly at all. I have Izuku Midoriya in custody. I need to get in. Without a trace of hesitation, the men allowed them access to the office. Upon entering, a bunch of men in suits could be seen in the room, but not for security, but carrying briefcases, and some were taking calls. To Izuku, they seemed to be some lawyers, or ministers. Honestly, the way they were arranged, he couldn't make out their position or hierarchy. That always confused him. In the middle of the office, there were two main people. One was Director Nezu, who was sitting on his high chair. A guy was standing in front of him, one that any Japanese person should definitely know. The Japanese minister Suzuki Haruka. I brought the person responsible for this problem. Just as I was told. After saying this, Izuku was slightly pulled forward so that he was closer to them. Now Izuku was free from his bonds, surrounded by bureaucrats, a teacher and a principal who looked at him dirty. As well as a minister who looked at him with deep disappointment. Hello Izuku Midoriya, see you again. Hello Haruka. You could see from afar that she was apathetic at seeing him. How's your incentive? I see that you're behaving less and less like the idealized hero everyone thinks you are. You could see a smug smile. What hero doesn't want to secure a future for himself? Haruka, he said seriously as he answered the minister. At the same time, you are already getting to know the harsh reality of the world. I am happy for you. For Izuku, the Prime Minister is a necessary evil in his life. He knew what he was getting into, but it was all for the greater good, both his own and those important to him. Can we continue now? Izuku said annoyed. The Prime Minister was not the archetypal politician of ancient times, a human Japanese with short black hair. Instead, he had a very special trait. He was a panda. Boy, I think you should sit down. Nezu intervened, not in the best mood. Izuku and Haruka had already sat down, and he had then begun with the long-awaited explanation. What mess did he get himself into? Everyone, including those accompanying the minister, fell silent. Izuku, do you remember that trip to Las Vegas? Yeah. Shit. Why does everything in my life have to involve that trip? Why does misfortune haunt me? He thought regretfully. Well, the riots weren't the only thing you caused, said the minister, who with just a signal his assistant brought him a somewhat sturdy folder. Me? It can't be, I didn't cause the riots. Yes, you did, and it was a huge mess. The Americans came to that conclusion through the arrests and subsequent investigations. A week ago, the Americans were about to request an arrest warrant against you through a court in New York. We were about to intervene in this scandal, since you are already or will be the symbol of peace. Imagine that the Japanese government has given support to a hero who was the cause of $5 billion in damages. Then he handed the folder to Izuku. He opened it and saw pictures he never imagined seeing in his life. It was him in his suit that he wore back then, holding a Molotov cocktail against some policemen. Behind him, although it wasn't clear, it looked like a crowd was following him. Next to him was a girl he didn't recognize. She seemed to be hugging him, at the moment she threw that thing. The girl's most distinctive feature was her long red scissors held behind her back. He wasn't liking this at all. To begin with, why was he wearing a kabuki mask? It can't be. That's not me, it must be twice. I was still in denial. Of course the minister shook his head. Don't you remember that he was murdering? That's you. Even if you want to deny it, just seeing the green hair is already distinctive in you. Haruka continued with her explanation. It seems that you made a fake name, according to speculation on the popular platform Reddit, and among other media investigated by us. You called yourself Hisashi. I think hiding your name was the strategy you used so that you wouldn't be easily recognized. Right? He wanted to die right there. So why am I not in jail now? The green-haired boy said in shock. The arrest warrant was cancelled on Thursday due to errors in due process, and no one was ever found guilty. Because? Now he was puzzled. Who would help him with that? That is where the problem lies for which we summoned you here. Wasn't that the problem? It could be worse? The problem was that according to our intelligence reports, the judge was contacted 4 times. All of them to persuade us about the process. Now Nezu intervened. President Kenneth Trump, Prime Minister of England Hermione Granger, Russian Foreign Secretary Benedikt Kozlov. Lastly, the Secretary of the Union of Kingdoms of Remnant himself. All of them. Trying to save your ass from jail. Now Nezu was in such a rage that it even made the Prime Minister a little nervous. And everyone else present. Now the minister tried to intervene to calm the director's fury a little. In less than a week, that 41-year-old judge retired from her job, with more than $120 million in bribes. All deposited at the time of saying yes to dismiss that case. He didn't have anything good to say about it, so I was still succumbing to the shock. We didn't know why many of the major powers of the world and abroad protected you. But when the next day the requests from their nations arrived at our embassies, we knew why. What requests did they send you? Izuku asked. Legitimate marriage records with your name and signature. With 7 girls from those nations. Relating that event to the other one was obvious. You alone, incredibly, messed with girls who enjoy a lot of influence and power from their places of origin. Now Izuku couldn't take it anymore, he was about to explode. I. Neither the beautiful psychologist he is could help him at this moment, nor her advice. No. Everyone flinched, even more than Nezu at Izuku's scream. Screaming everything in his second favorite language. Spanish. I fuck the fucking fuck. Suddenly the minister said in surprise. Where did this chorus come from? After Vegas, this was the worst day of his life. Finally our protagonist had left the director's office. He had to leave the academy immediately, he didn't feel like seeing anyone, especially his girlfriend. I need a beer, I'd better go to La Fonda, anyway I'll have to get to work early. He said in Spanish with visible frustration. It didn't take long for him to return to his classroom, where his classmates were hanging out while Professor Aizawa arrived. His entrance caused a lot of doubts and confusion. Why did they send him to the principal's office? They asked. He didn't say anything, he just grabbed his backpack, gave them a quick goodbye and left as fast as he could. Not letting them even ask him what happened. Although, to them it was predictable that he wasn't going to tell them anything. Meanwhile, Aizawa watched his student leave the classroom and head towards the exit. He knew that no one should bother him for now, he already had enough problems to deal with. Plus, this gave him the perfect opportunity to talk to his classmates. It wouldn't be nice for them. Then, the teacher suddenly entered the classroom abruptly, alarming Group 3A. It's time to talk about your punishment. He could tolerate that they had drugged him, that they had drunk alcoholic beverages, that they had probably participated in the riots just like him, that because of them he had to lie about some things to his parents. But, he will never forgive them that because of them they had also lowered his salary. He could take it out on Izuku, but he was already living his own hell, and in part he knows that it was not entirely his fault either. To begin with, how the hell did he end up getting lost? Is what he wondered since they arrived in Japan. To finally declare the sentence, he stood in front of his beloved students, aggressively lifting his blindfolds. Have you heard of the training recommended by the former hero of the 90s, Sub-Zero? The one that the military itself abhors. Now his face looked like pure evil. The students were quick to feel fear, some even screamed in horror. This is going to be long. Denki concluded, dropping his face onto his desk in a comical manner. While Sato and Mineta cowardly fled, but were in vain dragged across the hard floor from outside the classroom into the classroom. Should I give you any spoilers? The screams of suffering from the hellish training can still be heard from the Tokyo Tower. Many urban legends were born from this in the future. As incredible as it may seem, Uraka Ochako was spared from that suffering. Now we see her leaving UA at her respective leaving time. Inside she was happy that her classmates had finally paid something for their actions. Everything was fine in her relationship with her boyfriend until they ruined it. Why did they have to lose him in Vegas? On the other hand, she was happy that they hadn't drugged him, that gave her assurance that he hadn't been unfaithful. She knew this for a simple reason, his love for her was strong and latent, even with all their problems in their relationship that united them. She concluded that only drugged would he cheat on her, because even drunk he would never be tempted by a woman. She knew this when she accidentally got drunk with that wine at Christmas, she never remembered it, but the bitch Itsuka Kendo tempted him and he refused. For that reason, she never worried about that matter in Vegas. She had her theories about why he changed after that trip. It could have been shame for acting irresponsibly, maybe he did criminal things, that wouldn't have mattered to her. Even if he looked into a woman's eyes by accident, it didn't matter, he had her, any beauty would be an ugly hag compared to herself, in the eyes of her boyfriend. For Buddha's sake. She was a complete beauty, many boys had declared their love for her and she refused. No woman was going to surpass her and take her precious boy away from her, no one. Izuku for her, was still the same bossy, quiet boy, in love with her. Everything he thinks will be influenced by herself. Right now she is in a rebellious stage because of that trip, but she is going to do something. She just has to talk to him directly, it was easy, she would tell him everything, and everything would go back to how it was before. He could only smile at that. In the meantime, he wanted to think about the allies he had, so he thought about Jack's bitch. Well, I didn't do anything. Although I should have pity on Jiru and bring her a bottle of water when I was done? He said while putting his hand on his chin and thinking, I could make her suffer more, but would it be too much? Since. Well, she's the only one I trust currently. So. 3. B. No. When she finally decided what to do, she headed to a train station, which led to a residential area. Unfortunately for her, she had to wait half an hour. As a result, she sat down on a metal bench, the typical ones at a train station. Like any young person her age, she started looking at her phone to kill time. Sigh, Susie, I swear that if I see you again I will steal your poison encyclopedia and feed it to the chicken. Without warning, a somewhat frustrated girl sat down next to her. She was looking at a tourist map and seemed to be unable to find her way around, and she continued like that for a few minutes. Uraka found her reaction funny since she lived in a somewhat remote prefecture and never really got her bearings during her first year, even with the technology offered by Google Maps. So, to do her good deed for the day, she approached her and said, "Hey." The girl noticed that she was being called, and turned her attention towards it. "Oh. Hello." I answer him in a very friendly manner, even using the classic greeting of lightly moving my hand from side to side. "What is your name?" "My name is Atsuko Kagari, but people call me Ako." Without asking, she shook his hands in a sign of trust. "Are you from Japan?" "No." She lightly slapped her face. "It's obvious you're from Japan, since you speak Japanese, right?" Ha 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 ha. Suddenly her anime-like eyes sparkled and she approached Uraka very uncomfortably. "You're the first one who talks to me without me talking to her. I didn't remember much that my country of origin was very cold sometimes, especially with foreigners. Do I look like I'm from England? Can you tell my English accent?" She said that last bit pretending to be sad. "Chale, as my husband would say, I never thought that returning to my country of origin would be so difficult. But it's worth it, although it's frustrating if your own friend sends you the wrong address, and I can't contact Diana because she's still at the embassy." She kept talking and talking. Thanks to that, Uraka could tell that she was an excited, impulsive, reckless, optimistic and energetic girl with a short temper. "Poor guy she calls husband," he said in conclusion upon meeting the girl. On the other hand, that girl was pretty. She has long brown hair with straight bangs and parts it in a half-up style in the form of a short ponytail behind her head, and she also has oval red eyes. She also has a pale skin complexion. Here in her country, many otakus would have their eyes on her, especially with that English accent that kind of stuck to her. England, could she be a magician? "It's weird to see a Japanese person being a magician," he said, thinking doubtfully. "So, where do you want to go?" I would like to go to a housing complex called Honkai in the center of Musafatsu. I would have to meet my friends there, but there you see me, lost near the UA. I haven't located it yet, although I doubt my husband goes there." "Does her husband attend UA? In fact, doesn't she look pretty young to be married? Then why the hell did she want to go to the apartment complex Izuku lives in?" "Oh, okay, can I see the address your friend sent you?" Finally, she could help her. Even though she could guide her, she had to verify something. "Yeah." She had a fanny pack with her and took out her phone. She gave it to him unlocked, right in the conversation where that Susie sent him the written address by text. Being a little more fussy in the conversation, she was able to find a part that seemed strange to her. Even very suspicious. She was able to understand it despite not fully mastering English. "Diana went to the English embassy to look for the real name, although we suspect that it is the one who studies at the UA, go check Ako, Lauda." About half an hour after that message, she apparently sent one later. "Negative, my husband doesn't study there, I never found him, so it must be another school of heroes. If I went to check it would be a waste of time. Honestly, I don't trust the show business very much." "No, it's not Izuku, what the fuck was she thinking? Maybe he's some idiot Shiketsu and she thought he was her green-haired boy. So there wasn't that much trouble giving her the right address, since her friend didn't know how to put cologne and street in kanji. Anyone could have gotten confused." When she finally finished, she impulsively rushed to hug Uraka, thanking her and saying that her train would arrive a little before hers and wouldn't take long. All that was left was to say goodbye and each of them went their separate ways. Not without first satisfying her curiosity. "Hey, can I ask you something?" "Yeah?" "That ring on your hand, is it the one your husband gave you?" She fantasized a lot about the day she would marry Izuku, and also, she had always imagined how he would propose to her. So despite the rare case she saw, a lost husband, she wanted to ask him how he felt the day he proposed. This one," he said, stretching out his arm, revealing a beautiful gold and diamond ring, a very expensive one, apparently. "Yes, it was with this one that he proposed to me." "How was it?" "Well, if you could tell." Now, Ako was red as a tomato. Implying that it was not due to such innocent circumstances. "Well, it was a night in July, and we had just spent a wonderful time together," she said, still blushing, and it seemed that her expression remembered that moment. Uraka was dying of morbid curiosity knowing that, She blushed anyway. She didn't need to know that detail. Then, without warning, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, and it was a box, a small ring box. Then he said to me, "Will you make me the happiest man in the world?" And I said yes. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I mean, it was like finding true love. There aren't many of those in life, right? Although her anecdote was a bit morbid, she wished that one day Izuku would propose to her like that. It would be a dream for her. But wait. Would they do it? Suddenly, the train that was heading in the direction she said arrived. Then she picked up her backpack and said to him, "It was nice meeting you, eh? Uraka Ochako, I hope to see you again, Ako." And they said goodbye with a Japanese bow. Now they will continue on their way without knowing that they will meet again much sooner than they expected. Meanwhile, Ako, sitting in the right seat on the train, received a new message. "Ako, our husband's name is Izuku Midoriya, and he is a hero, albeit a student," as he said. "I was worried that the marriage certificates would be sent under the false name, and the marriage would be annulled, but our good friend the minister helped us by putting the full name before it was sent to the Japanese embassy in London. The signature is authentic, so no Japanese legal regulations were violated, so we're good for now. I'll meet you at the housing complex we investigated, he should be there. Diana C. We must take him to England at all costs, so that he takes responsibility, Susie. Thank you very much, Diana. Friends, you will see that she will accept us." Then I put my phone away again. It's a shame that our main obstacle is his girlfriend. But it doesn't matter, he'll have both of us, just the two of us, we'll make him remember why he fell in love with us. She said determinedly. She had never been so determined since her final battle with Morgana. For her, to have your true love you will have to fight against all odds, even if there are rivals. It's a shame she didn't know that her girlfriend was in front of her, because she couldn't have attacked first.